Join the coven. My friend has a coin-operated little brother. A story written by Magpie Quill. There were so many weird kids at Ashburn Intermediate School that the weird kids didn't even stand out from the rest. There was Tina Reese, who wore an eye patch every day and claimed that the hamster in Mr. Trevor's room had eaten her eyeball out. There was Andy Bale, who always went around smiling but never spoke a single word. And of course, there was Zach Wilson, who seemed like a nice and quiet kid, except the other day Kimberly Lee swore she saw a massive, freaking bark scorpion crawling out of his pocket. We all gasped when she said that, not because of the scorpion part, because Kimberly said the F word. Then we proceeded to gawk at her with a half-envious kind of awe. Anyway, there were a lot of weirdos at Ashburn, but my best friend Hannah wasn't weird in the slightest bit. At least, I thought she wasn't, until one day after school when she came up to me with nervous excitement glinting in her eyes. Sadie, she said. Want to hold on to your Macy's money and come on over to my house? I've got something to show you. I frowned. Why the Macy's money? Because I'm going to show you something way more amazing than a new pair of shoes, and I need quarters for it. What is it? You'll see. I put my hand in my pocket and touched the fuzz of my little kitten-shaped coin purse, where I put the 2 quarters my dad gave me every day so I could save up and buy the furry leather lace-up boots in the store window of Macy's. More amazing than the boots, huh? I muttered. Hannah nodded enthusiastically. Fine, this had better be worth it. Hannah didn't have a dad. That much I knew, from the day 2 springs ago when she came to school crying. She told me her mom had kicked her dad out of the house, screaming and threatening and all that. I knew Hannah missed her dad, because she would sometimes show us pictures on her phone and tell us stories of what a cool dad he was. How he was a watchmaker, and sometimes would make her these tiny little wind-up toys that would move and talk to her with little doll mouths. That sounds fake, Kimberly had snorted. It's real. Oh yeah? Let me see them then. My mom smashed all of them when she kicked out my dad. That had made everyone feel sort of awkward, especially because Hannah started tearing up and Kimberly had sauntered down the hallway muttering to herself. Sadie? I snapped back to attention. What? Listen to me. You need to keep this a secret, okay? The thing I'm gonna show you. Just show me already. You've got to promise. Hannah pushed open the door to her pink and blue room and walked over to her closet, which was plastered with faded stickers and posters of boy bands. Promise you won't tell anyone? Yeah, I grumbled. Promise. She opened the closet door, and sitting inside was a corpse. I don't think I've ever screamed as loud as I did then. We were lucky Hannah's mom wasn't home, because she would have surely heard us. Or maybe Hannah had known this would happen, so she brought me to her house when her mom wasn't there. Quiet, she hissed. The whole neighborhood's gonna hear you. That thing. It's my brother. His name's Jax. He's dead. Hannah nodded solemnly. He was sick ever since he was born. He died 2 years ago. Then why? My dad brought him back. You see, Jax looks dead right now, but my dad's very good at fixing things. He found a way to fix Jax, and now I can talk to him whenever I like. I wanted to look at her and see if she was serious, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the corpse. The pale and bony body sitting on the floor of Hannah's closet was that of a small boy, something like 12 years old, though it was hard to tell with the shriveled skin and sagging features. He was dressed in white linens, as if he had been prepared for a burial that never happened. His eyes were closed and his head lolled limply, and in my catch breaths, I caught a hint of a faint, sickening stench. "Quarters, please." I shook myself out of my daze. "Huh?" "The quarters. I need them to make him alive." I stared at Hannah. She rolled her eyes, stuck her hand in my pocket, and fished out my kitten-shaped coin purse. She zipped it open and shook out 2 quarters, and then crouched down by the corpse in the closet. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Come and see." With stiff movements, I lowered myself to be eye level with the white, shriveled body. A shudder went through me as I studied the papery crinkles and pores of its skin. Without even a bit of hesitation, Hannah tipped open the jaw of the little boy and stuck her fingers into his mouth. I almost gagged as she parted his yellow teeth and used her thumb to peel the stiff, grayish tongue from the bottom of his mouth. "There's a coin slot," she said. "See?" Even as I recoiled in disgust, I could see the narrow horizontal slit in the skin under the boy's tongue. Hannah took the 2 quarters and slipped them into the slit, and then sat back and grinned. I watched the corpse, partly dismissive about Hannah's ridiculous claims that her dead brother could come back alive, and partly terrified of the "but what if he did?" At first, nothing seemed to happen, and I began to believe my best friend was just crazy. But then I saw it. The boy's skin was inflating, it seemed. The papery white wrinkles of his face slowly eased, and the bones in his hands receded as his fingers became fingers instead of sticks. A tinge of pink gradually returned to his cheeks, and even his long, messy hair seemed to regain some of its color, a similar golden brown to Hannah's ponytailed curls. As I watched in disbelief, small, muffled clicking noises began to emanate from the boy's chest. The sounds were rhythmic, like tiny mechanical heartbeats, or maybe they were breathing sounds as the boy's chest began to rise and fall. Finally, the boy opened his eyes. They were soft hazel, just like Hannah's. "Hannah?" he said in a small voice. "You're still here?" Hannah threw her arms around the boy. The boy blinked, smiled, and hugged her back. "It's been too long," Hannah said. "I'm sorry. Mom caught me stealing quarters from her purse, and now she won't give me any money." The boy buried his nose in Hannah's shoulder. "I thought maybe you had forgotten about me. It felt like an eternity in the gray." "I'm so sorry. I'm here now." The boy hugged her tightly for a moment, then his eyes wandered to me. "Who's that?" Hannah quickly pulled away and gathered herself. Right, I should introduce you. Jax, this is my best friend Sadie. Sadie, Jax." I swallowed hard. "Hi, Jax," I said haltingly. I trailed off at a loss for words. Jax smiled sheepishly and turned to Hannah. "I thought you were keeping me secret." "Yeah, well, Sadie's my best friend, and best friends are for sharing secrets." "You just needed my quarters," I muttered. "That was part of it. Now, what do you guys want to do?" I spent the afternoon playing Mario Kart with Hannah and her dead brother. Close to the end of our second hour, Jax put down his controller in the middle of the game and sat back on the fuzzy pink carpet. "I'm going back," he said quietly. Hannah paused the game. When we looked at Jax, his cheeks were starting to turn pale. "I don't want to go." I'll get more quarters, Hannah said. Promise. When? Hannah bit her lip. She looked at me pleadingly. I put my hand in my pocket and thumbed the fuzz of my coin purse. I took a short breath, thinking about the boots in the Macy's store window. Thursday, I finally said. I'll be back with more quarters on Thursday. Jax's face lit up for just a moment. Then his eyes slid closed. The muted clicking of his heartbeat slowed, and his body crumpled limply to the floor. The blood drained from his face, and his skin turned gray, and in just a few moments, he had become the skeletal corpse again. You're the greatest, Sadie, Hannah said, smiling wide. I promise I'll repay you someday. I went to Hannah's house with my coin purse every Tuesday and Thursday. Each time, Hannah requested 2 quarters and slid them into the slot under Jax's tongue. Jax came alive, a trace of relief in his eyes, as if waking from a long nightmare, and we spent the afternoon playing video games and sharing the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that Hannah's mom had left for her in the fridge before going to work. 2 hours later, Jax would slowly sink back into cold, unmoving death, and Hannah would pick him up gently, hug his bony white body, and put him back in her closet. One day, as the end of Jax's 2 hours approached, I pulled out my coin purse and shook out 4 more quarters. The boots can wait a bit longer, I said. Jax, you can have these. Jax's eyes widened. Hannah's did too. She quickly clasped her hand over mine. Wait, Sadie, he can't have those. Why not? I'll stay in the room, Jax said quickly. No going downstairs, promise. No, you have to go back to the grade now, and Sadie will be back on Thursday. Why can't he have the quarters? I asked again. Hannah hesitated, like she was trying to decide whether or not to tell the truth. Finally, she sighed. My mom will be home soon. She doesn't know Jax is here. What? She didn't like what Dad did to him. She said he was an abomination, a zombie, a robot wearing the skin of her little boy. Jax's face went slack. I could almost hear the lurch of his clicking heartbeats. That's why she kicked Dad out, Hannah snapped. She put Jax in a garbage bag and threw him in the dumpster. If she finds out I snuck him back into my room, she'll smash him to pieces, just like she smashed the wind-up toys. Hannah took the quarters from my hand and stuffed them back in my purse. That's not true, Jax whimpered, his eyes full of pain. Mom wouldn't. Mom's not the way she used to be, Hannah said grimly. I told you, that's why you shouldn't see her, and she shouldn't see you. Jax opened his mouth to say something back, but at that moment the clicking of his heartbeats began to fade. His eyes slid shut, and he slipped to the floor. I'm gonna call my dad, Hannah muttered, pulling out her phone. You should leave now. I need someone who will understand. Tuesday was awkward. Jax had the same relief in his eyes as he woke up, but he also looked sad. Mario Kart wasn't as fun. My coin purse felt heavy in my pocket. I tried to remind myself of the furry boots at Macy's, but all I could think about was how much time all those quarters could buy for Jax. He's happy with the 2, Hannah said as she put his body back in the closet. Even that is a blessing for him, Sadie. We can't risk throwing his life away. He could stay in your room, like he promised, I said. Your mom won't see him. Hannah shook her head. He misses Mom. Sooner or later, he'll try to go to her, because he won't believe I'm telling the truth about her. She said it with a tone that didn't invite me to argue. I went home for the evening, and in the weeks that followed, neither I nor Jax acknowledged the extra quarters in my purse. Things almost became normal. Then we realized that Jax hadn't forgotten. It was a Thursday. Hannah and I were downstairs in the kitchen fetching the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from the fridge. when I noticed something was missing. Sadie, what's wrong? I patted my pocket. My coin purse was gone. We ran upstairs and threw open the door to Hannah's room. Jack stood trembling in the middle of the room. He was bleeding from his mouth. The slot under his tongue split and torn from stuffing inch-thick stacks of quarters through at once. He looked up at Hannah with a strange mix of anger and sorrow in his eyes. "It's done," he said. "You can't stop me now." He tossed the blood-stained purse onto the carpet. Hannah scrambled to pick it up and look inside. It was empty. "Jax," she cried, "what have you done?" "You've been keeping me prisoner in this room for years," he said, his voice cracking around the edges. "I'm going to see Mom, whether you like it or not. I'm going to walk out on the streets. I'm going to find Dad and bring him back home." "No, you're not. You can't tell me what to do now." Hannah dashed across the room to her desk. She yanked open a drawer, dug beneath piles of old magazines and tangled cables. She closed her hand around something small and shining. "Yes, I can," she growled. "All you had to do was stay quiet and be happy. Why won't you believe me? The world will take you apart to pieces." She strode over to Jax. He shrank away, but she grabbed him by the collar and swiveled him around. In her hand, she raised a small silver key, intricately cut and studded with tiny jewels like it was part of an expensive watch. Only when she yanked down Jax's collar did I notice the thin silver keyhole set into the nape of the neck. "Let go of me!" Jax cried. He covered the keyhole with his hands and struggled, hard enough to tear the thin linen of his shirt out of Hannah's hand. He ducked away, kicked a chair into Hannah's knees, scrambled up onto her desk and threw open the window. My heart plunged into my stomach. "Jax, no!" Jax glanced back. For just a fraction of a second, blood dripped down his chin and tears filled his eyes. The click-click-clicking of his mechanical heart was painfully quick. Then he jumped out the window, and Hannah screamed his name, and I heard the soft thump of a body hitting the lawn below. For a moment there was silence. Then we heard the scrabbling of footsteps, bare feet pattering on the grass. By the time he ran up to the window and looked down, Jax was nowhere to be seen. If he was looking for his mom, Jax should have come back home by the evening. He never did. Hannah waited anxiously at home until bedtime, but the only person who came home was her mom from work. I walked up and down the neighborhood streets, looking into storefronts and alleyways until I had to go home because my parents would worry. We did it again the next day, and the next. Jax never came back. I racked my brain to remember how many quarters I had in the coin purse. 30, maybe 40. Hannah fell silent at the thought of her brother collapsing on the streets and returning to a corpse. We discussed whether something like that would be on the news, and in her desperation, Hannah decided to take comfort in the fact that they never mentioned Jax on television. "He must have found some way to get more quarters," she said. "He must have." Hannah calls her dad every day now. She cries, says it's her fault. I only hear muffled fragments of words coming from her phone. But her dad sounds like a pretty nice person. If you see a little boy on the streets whose heartbeat sounds like clockwork, please let me know. And if you stumble upon the white withered corpse of what used to be a boy out in broad daylight, with nothing to just suggest how he died or where he came from, please hide him in a safe place and look under his stiff, dead tongue. He might sorely need some quarters to see his family again.